Asexual reproduction in organisms. The known methods of reproduction are broadly grouped into two main types, sexual and asexual. Asexual reproduction is a mode of reproduction by which offspring arise from a single parent and inherit the genes of that parent only. There are several types of asexual reproduction, such as 1. Binary fission, 2. Regeneration, 3. Vegetative propagation, 4. Budding, and 5. Spore formation. The process of asexual reproduction, in which in binary fission, the parent organism is replaced by two daughter organisms because it literally divides into two. A good example of the same is a single-celled organism like paramecium. In this case, the process of reproduction begins with the division of its nucleus into nuclei. This is followed by division of its body into two, each part receiving a nucleus. Finally, two paramecium are born from the single parent cell. In case of unicellular organisms, cell division or fission leads to the creation of new individuals. Many different patterns of binary fission have been observed. Many bacteria and protozoa simply split into two equal halves during cell division. On the other hand, some single-celled organisms such as malarial parasite Plasmodium divide into many daughter cells simultaneously by multiple fission. We now move on to another type of asexual reproduction called regeneration. Simple animals like planaria can be cut into any number of pieces, and each piece grows into a complete organism. This process is called as regeneration. Regeneration is carried out by specialized cells which proliferate and make large number of cells. Asexual reproduction, in which new plants are produced from roots, stems, leaves, and buds, is called vegetative propagation. It is called vegetative propagation as the reproduction takes place through the vegetative parts of a plant. Another example of vegetative propagation comes across in case of the plant Bryophyllum, where the buds produced in the notches along its leaf fall on the soil and develop into new plants. Vegetative propagation is also seen in case of potatoes. You must have seen scars on potatoes, which are also known as eyes. If a potato is cut into small pieces along with the eye, buried in the soil and watered properly, a new potato plant There are certain cells that split via the process of budding, resulting in a mother and daughter cell. The offspring organism is smaller than the parent. A good example of this is baker's yeast. These organisms multiply every few hours if sufficient nutrients are made available to them. The small projection coming out from the yeast cell is called a bud. The bud gradually grows and gets detached from the parent cell to form a new yeast cell. If this process continues, a large number of yeast cells are produced. Budding also takes place at a multicellular level. In case of animals, budding takes place in hydra. In each hydra, there may be one or more bulges. These bulges are the developing new individuals called buds. The new individuals develop as outgrowths from a single parent. You must have seen the slimy green patches in ponds or other stagnant water bodies. These are called algae. When nutrients and water is available, algae grow and multiply rapidly by a process called fragmentation. An alga breaks into two or more fragments which grow into new individuals. This process continues and they cover a large area in a short period of time. Fragmentation is a form of asexual reproduction where a new organism grows from a fragment of the parent. Each fragment develops into a mature, fully grown individual. The last type of asexual reproduction that we are going to discuss is called spore formation. Spores are asexual reproductive bodies. Each spore is covered by a hard protective coat to withstand unfavorable conditions such as high temperature and low humidity. A spore germinates and develops into a new individual. This process is called spore formation. You must have noticed the fungi growing on a stale piece of bread back home. The species of Aspergillus, a common fungi, is a good example with regards to the process of spore formation. Aspergillus species are common contaminants of starchy foods such as bread and potatoes. They commonly grow as molds on the surface of a substrate as a result of the high oxygen tension. The blobs that can be seen growing on the surface are called sporangia, which contain cells or spores that eventually burst open and disperse in the air to give birth to new individuals. The process of spore formation thus continues with the new individuals, and the cycle goes on. Asexual reproduction is their part of the nature which helps organisms reproduce and therefore survive.
Fertilization is the epic story of a single sperm facing incredible odds to unite with an egg and form a new human life. It is the story of all of us. During sexual intercourse, about 300 million sperm enter the vagina. Soon afterward, millions of them will either flow out of the vagina or die in its acidic environment. However, many survive because of the protective elements provided in the fluid surrounding them. Next, the sperm must pass through the cervix, an opening into the uterus. Usually, it remains tightly closed, but here the cervix is open for a few days while the woman ovulates. The sperm swim through the cervical mucus, which is thinned to a more watery consistency for easier passage. Once inside the cervix, the sperm continues swimming toward the uterus, though millions will die trying to make it through the mucus. Some sperm remain behind, caught in the folds of the cervix, but they may later continue the journey as a backup to the first group. Inside the uterus, muscular uterine contractions assist the sperm on their journey toward the egg. However, resident cells from the woman's immune system, mistaking the sperm for foreign invaders, destroy thousands more. Next, half the sperm head for the empty fallopian tube, while the other half swim toward the tube containing the unfertilized egg. Now, only a few thousand remain. Inside the fallopian tube, tiny cilia push the egg toward the uterus. To continue, the sperm must surge against this motion to reach the egg. Some sperm get trapped in the cilia and die. During this part of the journey, chemicals in the reproductive tract cause the membranes covering the heads of the sperm to change. As a result, the sperm become hyperactive, swimming harder and faster toward their destination. At long last, the sperm reach the egg. Only a few dozen of the original 300 million sperm remain. The egg is covered with a layer of cells called the corona radiata. The sperm must push through this layer to reach the outer layer of the egg, the zona pellucida. When sperm reach the zona pellucida, they attach to specialized sperm receptors on the surface, which triggers their acrosomes to release digestive enzymes, enabling the sperm to burrow into the layer. Inside the zona pellucida is a narrow, fluid-filled space just outside the egg cell membrane. The first sperm to make contact will fertilize the egg. After a perilous journey and against incredible odds, a single sperm attaches to the egg cell membrane. Within a few minutes, their outer membranes fuse and the egg pulls the sperm inside. This event causes changes in the egg membrane that prevent other sperm from attaching to it. Next, the egg releases chemicals that push other sperm away from the egg and create an impenetrable fertilization membrane. As the reaction spreads outward, the zona pellucida hardens, trapping any sperm unlucky enough to be caught inside. Outside the egg, sperm are no longer able to attach to the zona pellucida. Meanwhile, inside the egg, the tightly packed male genetic material spreads out. A new membrane forms around the genetic material, creating the male pronucleus. Inside, the genetic material reforms into 23 chromosomes. The female genetic material, awakened by the fusion of the sperm with the egg, finishes dividing, resulting in the female pronucleus, which also contains 23 chromosomes. As the male and female pronuclei form, spiderweb-like threads, called microtubules, pull them toward each other. The two sets of chromosomes join together, completing the process of fertilization. At this moment, a unique genetic code arises, instantly determining gender, hair color, eye color, and hundreds of other characteristics. This new single cell, the zygote, is the beginning of a new human being. And now the cilia in the fallopian tube gently sweep the zygote toward the uterus, where he or she will implant in the rich uterine lining, growing and maturing for the next 9 months until ready for birth.